Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bootstrap Founder podcast. Today, I'm talking to Damon Chen, the founder behind Testimonial.to, a social proof tool that has recently reached $400,000 in annual recurring revenue. Now, that's extremely impressive, particularly considering that Damon got there all by himself. So let's just ask how this family man accomplished such growth while living in one of the most expensive places you could ever build a business in. Here's Damon Chen. I was listening to a podcast that you did a year ago or something, or a year and a half ago, and you were at 4K MRR. So you're looking at 400 ARR, which is somewhere around like 32 or something in monthly recurring revenue. That is already a significant growth. I guess like in a couple of years, you probably will be at 400K on a monthly level. How is that going? How's your growth been? And how has the business itself grown?
Yeah, the business is growing quite well. I would say it's almost a double-digit growth every month over month, and they still keep this kind of growth rate. And I think most of it I would just credit this kind of a growth to the building public. Otherwise, because most of the traffic that I got is from the social media. And it's like a snowball. When I get more exposure on the social media, and it's like the wave will rival the boats, and the SEO, all those kind of word of mouth will also come just naturally, organically, without me doing anything extra.
Well, I guess you're also building a
It's like
product
magic.
that lends itself to this, right? Like
Yes.
it's not the testimonial. The product itself can be used to talk about the product, which is awesome. I think that's one of the best uses of this product. I feel that the most mind-blowing ones is when you have a product that itself is a product to tell people about products, and they can talk about it in the same way. I'm super interested in the origin of this, because from what I know, when I first saw you on Twitter, you were building something completely different, or at least what seemed to be completely different, right? I'm talking about LonelyDev at that point. That's a name that I don't think many people know, because you renamed it pretty quickly. Tell me about that and where that came from.
Yeah, LonelyDev is a community that I built to solve my own problem, because by then, it was early 2020, and the pandemic just hit. And I used to work in Cisco, and in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, all the big companies ask their employee to work from home. And I was one of them. And I kind of feel lonely because, I was used to be surrounded by my coworker. I used to have lunch, hang out, coffee chat with them. But after work from home, and I was kind of stuck in my own place, without anyone that I can talk to. So I kind of feel this kind of loneliness. So that's why the idea that I want to create a community. I just don't want to create another, indie hackers community, another, subreddit community, because most of the existing communities are text-based, and it doesn't really solve my loneliness problem, even if I'm really active in those communities. And I think, why, right? So because I couldn't really see the people. So that's why I think maybe I could build a video-focused community where people can just, post their updates. If they need any help, they can just, record a video asking for help, and other people can, give you a hand. So that's that's where the idea come from. That's why I built the LonelyDev.
Yeah, looking into the story of you and your products, video seems to be a common theme. And I think this is also a typical entrepreneurial thing, because once you know one thing you can do well, you just see it everywhere, right? I think LonelyDev then turned into, what was it, IndieLog, right?
Yeah, LonelyDev, after a few weeks, it was rebranded to IndieLog, because several of my LonelyDev community members said that, the name LonelyDev sounds a little bit inactive, and they aren't actually never felt lonely. And that's why I'm kind of thinking maybe it's the time to rebrand it to something else. And indie hackers.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I just got inspired by indie hackers, and I think maybe I should keep the indie as part of the name. And, because people are doing the log, this kind of thing. And I think maybe indie plus log and IndieLog may be a good name.
I think that was a good name because it immediately gave people kind of almost a brand recognition. Like they knew indie hackers, they knew what that meant, right, in that community, because indie means a lot of things in different communities. Right? Indie music, you have indie publishing, but indie hacking is a particular kind of business building, which is not necessarily clear if you don't know the word, right? If you only hear the word for the very first time. So I think that was a great name choice. Honestly, I can very much relate to this. My second book that I put out, The Embedded Entrepreneur, that's not its initial name. Like the initial name that I had was Audience First, and people told me, hey, this is not what Audience First means to me, after I told them what I was going to write about. So I think you taking feedback from the community, that's already kind of build in public lesson number one. And I don't know if you were building in public at that point, or if you were just building on Twitter, which is not necessarily the same, but you already had the understanding of how to engage with your community and building a community too. That is one thing that I very much appreciate about this, because I understand it. So tell me more. Like in IndieLog, you wanted to build a community, and I think the video-based approach is a wonderful idea, particularly in the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic, where people were really craving connection. That is spot on, right? That's a solution for that very critical problem. I love it. So did you intend to ever monetize it? And if so, how did it go?
I never intend to monetize, make any money out of my community members. So that's the thing that I know from the very beginning. One of the reasons is that I was still employed. I got my bi-weekly paycheck, and I have no monetization, this kind of pressure. So I just very enjoyed in making friends from my own community. And the community is not big. It's not like, the scale of indie hackers. You just, several tens or a little bit hundreds of active community members. So that's more than enough to me. So because I'm the only moderator, I'm the only person to manage the LonelyDev community. And if I have, let's say 20 or 30 video updates every day, so that's more than enough for me to watch and interactive. So I kind of treat my community members as my friends. So I just, want to hear what they are up to. And I also want to share what I'm up to. And so we kind of just engage every day. And no really the monetization, this kind of thing.
That makes sense to me. Obviously, you wanted some kind of you wanted friends, right? Who doesn't want to talk to friends, like people who both know what they're doing, like peers in terms of doing the same thing as you do, and people who just want to hang out. Like nobody wants to sell you anything. Nobody wants to convince you to buy their courses or something. You just want to share your own progress. That is kind of what I like about building in public, because it's not pushy. Right? It's more about like, okay, here is what I did. What did you do? Like, do you have anything to say about this? But it's a demonstration, not a demo, right? Even though it's technically the same term, but you're not trying to push anything. Okay, so you're building a community without the intent to monetize it. Honestly, the founder in me would say, well, that doesn't sound like a business, and obviously it isn't, right? But a business came out of this. So how did you go from unmonetized community of a couple people that you hang out with to a business that is making multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in recurring revenue every year? How did that happen?
It is still because of the pandemic, because as I said, in the early 2020, the pandemic hit, and I started to feel lonely. I built LonelyDev, and I thought the pandemic will go away in a year, at least by end of 2020. And things will go back to normal, and I go back to office, and my daughter go back to her daycare, and I continue to work in my little cubicle. But things didn't happen as I expected. Things even get worse. So as I mentioned, my daughter, we didn't send her to daycare, and she stayed at home. I kind of feel, really can't manage my work and life. And to me, by the time, when my daughter was still young, and she's like my top priority. And I think I started to talk to my wife. Hey, I can't really work, really focus on my work. What should I do? At least one of us should quit our job and take care of our daughter full time. And one person has to sacrifice. And yeah, my wife works for a startup and is a lot of stuff. For me, the job is kind of getting bored. And at that moment, I was kind of thinking a pivot in my career because that's why I started building some side hustles like LonelyDev. I I kind of thinking that either I quit my job, prepare some job interview, and land a better job at any of the fan company, or I started doing side hustling and try to see if I can make a profit and make a living out of the thing here. Before the pandemic, when we just had our daughter in 2018, I was kind of interviewing with those fan companies, but all of them, I just felt the interview. And I was kind of, bored at the interview process. And I just, I have to spend several months to prepare the job, to prepare the coding interview and other interview process. And that's kind of make me think, you know, I really don't want to. And not to mention that if I land a job at any fan company, and the only thing maybe better is I get higher paid. But in terms of the stuff that I'm working, probably I would still do the same thing, just to change my employer. If I think that, oh, I'm gonna stay at the company until my retire, that's probably not the thing that I want to do. And that's not the thing that will make me excited. So I kind of gave up that approach, that branch. And I think that maybe I could just spend 6 months or a year, try to do some side hustling and see if I can make it. And the worst thing that for me is just I lost a several month paycheck, and I still have my safety, safety line, which is that I'm a software engineer. I live in the Bay Area, and the job demand is still really high. But now maybe not. But by then, I think that I can always fall back to a corporate job again if after 6 months I just felt at doing my own startup.
That I think is a common thing among software engineers is that they always have the way back into the industry, right? Even though you might be spending a couple years building your own thing, and then you might be slightly behind on whatever version React is at this point, or what new fancy framework is happening in somewhere, right? That you may not have incorporated into your work as much as you could have. You're still a good software engineer because you know how to code, right? You know how to, and you also know how, if you've been working in corporate businesses before, you know how that works. You know who to talk to and how to talk to people. So that's something that's always an option. And many software engineers, particularly in our industry, right? Like in the IT space, they want to potentially build a business, and they're scared of building a business because it means uncertainty, it means risk, and I want to talk to you about that too. But there's always another way. You can always do things on the side. You can freelance or consult or just find a part-time job, stuff like that. That is an option. But, and I hear many people who are listening to this yell at me, probably, if we have a family, if we have a life, and that has a priority, you can't just do yet another job and build a business and take care of a family, right? That there's always priorities and you have to shuffle them. And you did that. And I'm excited to hear about how you did that. Or maybe even if you could tell people who are in a position like this, who want to reprioritize, who want to get out of a full-time job into a entrepreneurial situation, how to deal with kids, how to deal with raising a child and having a family while still building a business on a budget, or I guess on with certain level of runway. Anything you can share? Anything that could help people here?
I think I'm actually not, relentlessly just to quit my job with just the $0 MRR, this kind of thing. actually quit my job when Testimonial hit 1,000 MRR, and by then I talked to my wife. Hey, this could be a thing, and my wife, her job is some data analytics, and just to show her my MRR chart, this kind of growth rate, and
Nice.
he could see, he could project, he
Good
could
convincing
predict
material,
something.
right?
She could predict something probably in another 12 months. So I just told her that I'm gonna make this 100,000 ARR by end of within 12 months. And if I cannot make it, I'm gonna quit this thing and go back to find a job. If I can make it, I'm gonna stick to it forever. So yeah,
That's incredible.
Yeah,
like it's an incredible promise, right? Like the promise itself is incredible. The fact that you actually are still working on the product means you did it. So that is even more incredible. Wow, that is cool.
Yeah, after 9 months, I hit 100K ARR, and that means that I can continue to do testimonial. Okay, I mentioned that I quit my job at 1,000 MRR milestone. And I wouldn't suggest people to just quit their full-time job without having any validation. And you ask me how I balance this kind of hustling with my family, with my kid. I would say that it is always like a grinding, especially in the beginning, because the product is not really mature. And still get a lot of feedback from my initial customers. This feature is missing, that feature is bugs here and there. So yeah, early days is pretty tough. I would say you have to be mentally prepared as well, because I said that I have to take care of our daughter. By then she was like 1.5 years old. I have to take care of her, especially in the daytime, spend several hours the full time taking care of her in the daytime. And I several cases that my customer ask for some customer support, but I have to tell them that, hey, I have to take my daughter to a playground. Can I reply you in an hour or two? There are several times that I reply a support tickets like this, and my customers would understand. And some of them know me from Twitter, and they would, they're patient on it. I would really appreciate their understanding. And but running a business in the early stage is really tough. So I mentioned that I take care of my daughter in the daytime. So that means that I have to spend my night or even midnight burning my midnight oil to fix things, to implement stuff. So yeah, just to summarize, you have to be financially prepared, at least some revenue validation, and you have to be mentally prepared. So it's a tough journey that
Yeah. It sounds tough too, right? I went through a similar journey. We quit our jobs, like with Feedback Panda, the business that we built. We quit our jobs when Feedback Panda was making $15,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Like we were in there for much longer, because we wanted to make absolutely sure that we could finance our lives with that, because we had no savings at that point, right? I didn't have a really high paying job. I had a well paying job, but not high enough to save a lot. And Danielle was doing essentially freelance work, so there was also not that much going on with her then. So we were waiting a long time. And you know what? I admire the fact that you prioritize your child over customer service, because that goes against all of hustle culture and grind set and all the bullshit, to be honest, that people spout and try to tell you when it comes to building a business, right? The fact that you prioritize your family in that moment, and you have customers, you attract customers that understand that and value that, that speaks tons about you as a founder and about you as the person owning the business, because you set these kind of standards in that business. Even if it's just your own business and nobody would ever work for you, that standard alone tells me everything about how much you care, right? You don't just care about your customers. You care about yourself so much that I think, how do I phrase this best? I think you need to be healthy and whole to be able to give people that are your customers good service and to provide a good business, a good product in a good business, right? If you starve yourself, if you starve your social connections, which is, I guess, harking back to IndieLog and what you wanted to do there, right? If you don't have relationships with people in your own life and in the digital world or wherever, and you then hope to build something meaningful, it's not going to happen. You need to be whole. You need to be healthy to be able to build a good business. So I really admire what you're doing there. And I just love that. I think it's just so nice to hear a successful founder say they said no to a customer. I'm going to do that later. It's just something you don't really hear every day. I'm really happy you said that.
Yeah. I think that I already sacrificed my paycheck, and I just don't want to sacrifice, I sacrifice paycheck to get the precious moment with my family, and that's the thing that's my goal. So it doesn't really make sense to sacrifice the time that I am gonna spend with my daughter. So I know that I would, because of this, I lost a few customers, and I think the business can last for many years, and I can always attract them back after 3 months. But for our kid, the toddler period is just only once, and once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, it's formative, right? You want to be there, you want to be present in that time. Very much appreciated. And I think it's that's important for people to hear, because but like generally you don't talk about the kind of soft problems in building a business too much, right? We talk about churn, we talk about MRR and whatever weird metric and, all these numbers and hard technical choices that we make. But rarely do we talk about missing our child growing up while building a business. You hear people in the academic space talk about that a lot, right? I've heard people who went for PhD going through relationships, kind of sacrificing the relationships of many years because they just could not spend the time with their partner and they grew apart, right? And even that people don't talk about much. And I think founders have the same problem if they overcommit to the project that they're building. And the more stress you have in your life because you do not have the financial safety net, or because for some other reason you really need to make this work, that kind of gets people so involved in the business that they lose touch with everything around them.
Yeah, you just raised a really good point that, set a perfect expectation. So that's the thing, that's the trick that I, make my customers happy. Because every time that I told them that, hey, I'm gonna probably will reply you by end of day, normally I would just reply them, within 30 minutes or an hour. So I told them that, hey, I'm going to take my daughter to the playground and probably be back in 2 hours. But in an hour, I can come back and I can just take care of it. So they can always get my response faster than they expect.
It's an interesting psychological thing too, because you tell them something that they can relate to. Right. So all of a sudden, you're not just this business that they talk to. You're a father. You're a person, and a person that is having a little person that really wants to go play on the swings. Right. That is something that's happening in the minds of the people talking to you. And all of a sudden, you're not just that customer service rep. Honestly, I think customer service can really benefit from humanizing the interaction. I've been experiencing this on the other end. Like I have similar experiences to you from the perspective of a business owner, having like human to human conversations with the people who used our product. I had a lot of conversations conversations that stole a lot of my development time because I was rather chatting with the customers than building the next feature, but it was worth it because you connect with somebody and you understand them better, which then influences product choices and marketing choices and that stuff. But most recently, I've been having these kind of experiences on the other side as a consumer. I have been ordering stuff online, as anybody has in the pandemic, right? And sometimes stuff goes wrong and things get misdelivered or not delivered at all. And I've made a point in every interaction that I have with somebody in a customer chat for, I don't know, Walmart or another gigantic company, usually nameless companies, to mention the person by name that is talking to me. And when just using their name in a response sometimes makes all the difference about how they approach the conversation. Because I've done this before, not using the name, just saying what I wanted and venting. I want this. This doesn't happen. I want that, right? That kind of, customer service behavior. But the moment you use the person's name, more options appear. All of a sudden, they spend a lot of time to try and make the thing happen for you, right? They might even go out of their way to do something that they wouldn't have done if you had just complained about what you have. And I think from both sides of the customer service conversation, humanizing it makes a whole lot of deal. And that brings me to the ultimate thing that I wanted to talk to you about today, because testimonial is all about social interactions. It's about social proof. That's what the tool is, for me, at least in my perception. In its core, it's a way to get social proof and to demonstrate social proof and to further social proof. So I want to ask you just, I guess it's a biased question because I also am building an audience and all that kind of stuff, but how important is social proof for businesses? And why are testimonials such an important thing that in consequence created such a great business for you?
I think it should go back to the 2020 when I built several other products before testimonial, because the common thing for me is that I can't really make any money out of those products. I treat them the failed products. And why they can't make any money? And me as a software engineer, as an engineer, and we always like finding some life hacks, right? Some shortcuts to solve the problem. And I'm not a marketing and salesperson. And the shortcuts for me seem like, maybe I just throw some reviews on the product landing page and try to see if people can really get convinced and get converted. But the text reviews are not really attracting to me, and I don't really want to create yet another text review product. And because I built LonelyDev, which is a video focused community, and I think that probably I can just add some video reviews. And the reason that I think that I can add the video testimonials there is because I think I just stopped by some websites. I think it's a Shopify developer website, and it has some video reviews from the Shopify developers there. And that made me think that I could probably integrate the video stuff into other review and see if people will buy it. And that's the reason that I pivot the original product from LonelyDev to testimonial. I just think that when people see the reviews, people see the testimonials, people will get convinced, because you are a content creator. You are now turn yourself into a content creator, and people buy your book, and it's like people buy from people. If people don't know you, people never heard any shout out from other people, it's really hard that for me, if I'm a new visitor and I'm interested in buying the embedded entrepreneur, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I don't see, if I don't see any reviews, and I'll probably you will have less chance to convert me to be a paying customer.
I think I'm using your product on the course landing page for Find Your Following, my
Appreciate
Twitter
that.
course. Yeah, that's just looking at it. I got a couple of video reviews there too, and I was thinking, like, when I first saw that, like the idea of asking my customers to have a video review, it was like, yeah, this is so much better than a text review, but not just because it's a new medium, but also because it actually makes it easier to spot fakes. I feel like, to me, social proof is very connected to authenticity and trust, right? These kind of things that you need to build a relationship with somebody. And somebody tweeting something, I could have just given them, if I wanted to, give them a text for them to tweet, pay them for it. It's how many people on Twitter like do advertisements, right? They give other people things to tweet and then they pay them for that, which I find very shady because it's very inauthentic. But you know, people do whatever they want in terms of ads and marketing. It's not for me, but I've seen it. It's kind of like ghostwriting, but bad, even worse than in many other ways. But a video, you can spot a faked video from miles away, right? Like, particularly if you are into online video game streaming or something, and you see people shilling products, you can see how fake it is. Like, if somebody likes something, they will tell you they like it, but if they're paid to do it, you will see this kind of cringy moment of inauthentic advertising. And I love that about video testimonials, because if they're not honest, I wouldn't use them, right? So people would immediately know that they're not honest. And that is just something that I don't want to communicate. So by having honest testimonials, you also transport and project honesty on people. Is that something that you intentionally built? Like, did you intentionally build this kind of with an honesty and authenticity focus, or is that just a consequence of the format of the medium?
I think things still needs to go back to LonelyDev, because the way that I want to build the product is I try to, you know, I just want to connect with real people and have this kind of real relationship. That's the purpose that I want to build LonelyDev. And for reviews, exactly like you said, you know, there were so many fake reviews, reviews like, you know, people just type really short sentences like, "Oh, great product, you know, highly recommended," and you know, append 5 stars on top of the text reviews. And those reviews are, you know, you can obviously detect that, oh, those reviews are probably templated, and not to mention that, you know, if you some text reviews with a user avatar, and those avatar images are from the stock those stock site,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
this person does not exist or something.
does not exist. So if you have those kind of reviews, and that's kind of like will bring some negative impact to a business, and but video testimonials will be totally different. Even if the people didn't say a word, simply by looking at the person's face, by looking at how the person talk, and you can immediately feel if the person is really happy or not. So that's the power that, you know, any non-video stuff can't really compete.
I think that very much describes the whole world of audience building to me, because the relationships you build with people, if you have not just text, but also audio, and then on top of that video, it's just a better way to relate, right? And that's kind of, I love you going back to IndieLog with this, because that is the point, right? That's why you built this thing, because you wanted to connect with people. And the best way to connect is through writing plus audio plus hearing plus seeing, right? All the senses in one. And I think the fact that you have built a business around that is wonderful. And the fact that you have almost, I hope soon, $500,000 in annual recurring revenue. I don't think that it's going to take you long to get there. So far you have 2 people in the business. Is that right?
Yes, I just hired a marketing guy last week. So it's
Nice.
his second
Well,
week.
that is an interesting choice. Interesting choice to hire. Why is that?
Because even after 2 years running my own business, and I still don't think that I can handle the marketing and sales really well. all I know the marketing is just the building public, making tweets, other things like code outreach. I'm not really interested in just spending my time doing some upgradable things. I'm still an engineer. I try to focus myself on the core product wise, and for those manual stuff, which involves human effort, and I prefer to have someone with his expertise to handle that. And I think it's the perfect time to bring someone to the team. One of the reasons is that the business is growing and it is profitable. Another thing is that early in June this year, we had our second kid. And, it will take me some extra time to take care of him. So
Yeah, I bet.
if I'm running everything by myself, I have to build the product, I have to market it, I have to do all those kind of other stuff. So I think that, it's probably not good to run a one-man business at all, because I kind of have this kind of a single point of failure. Because if I'm with my kids, my family, the business is kind of paused, and nothing, no other people can move the needle ahead. So I think my family reason and also the business is profitable. That made me think that it's the perfect time to bring someone else to the team. The person should be a complement to my skill, which means that he has to or she has to be handling the marketing and sales.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's particularly for solopreneurs, there is a point, right? There's a point where you reach saturation and you know that, or I hope you know that at that point, there is a way beyond that. It's just getting help, getting somebody else to do the work that you either don't like or you're not as good as, somebody to replace that limited capacity of yours with their full capacity. That's a big choice. It's, by the way, also a problem that I had in my own business. We were co-founders. We were two people to begin with, so it's a different story. But I had problems hiring because, and I think I'm quoting you here, I didn't want to manage people. That I read that tweet of yours like a couple hours ago or days ago. But you like me, I guess. You wanted to build stuff. You wanted to build a business, build code, write cool, make cool products. But you didn't want to manage other engineers, other people, tell them how to do their job. And that kept me from finding help, finding people who could potentially take the load off my shoulders and allow me to focus on the things that I actually should have focused on. So I'm wondering, that said, how are you gonna, if at all, grow the engineering side, the technical side of the business? What are the plans for you there?
I really don't have any plans.
Okay.
Okay. I think the way that I want to work, or either manage a team, will be the way that I wish I was treated when I worked for my previous employer. So I will try to be the person that I wished my previous manager could be. So if I bring someone to the team, I just wanna give them the full control over a project. Actually, I'm doing a similar stuff on from Upwork, where I try to hire some freelancers, contractors, just to work on a particular small project. And the contract, the one type of the contract that I don't really like to work is that they constantly ask my feedback, and those contractors tend to charge way less than the average rate. So those type of person, because I paid, let's say I paid them $50 per hour, but they will also cost me several hours during the day. So it's no longer 50 hours anymore. It's like I put my own hour on top of their hour, and it's like 100 per hour cost. And those type of person I don't really want to work with. and I have to inject so many of my own thing instead of their creativity. I tend to hire more than one person on the same project so that I can compare. And the perfect type of developer that I want to work with, I just throw them the ideas, some mock-ups. But in terms of the detail, the nitty-gritty stuff, that they don't have to talk to me. They just need to show the MVP of their product and ask me to test it out. If I have some feedback on top of the general stuff, I just tell them. And in terms of how they can implement it, they don't have to say anything to me. If I wanna know, I can always check the GitHub repo, but they don't really need to ask any feedback on those tiny little stuff.
Yeah, I think that for software entrepreneurs who have come from a coding background and now are building a business, it's hard to do this kind of split, to balance this, because like corporate software engineers often are trained to build exactly to specification, right? Here's the thing we need, and make sure this is exactly what it's going to look like, and work with all these other people in test and then in DevOps to make it compatible with whatever kind of weird corporate infrastructure there is. You have a lot of constraints and a lot of documented like things you need to implement. You want people of that skill level, but you want them to be completely autonomous and just give you the thing, right? That is such a hard balance to strike. I understand the problem. And that honestly was one of the reasons why I didn't hire. And I got into a burnout situation myself, because I thought nobody can ever do what I do. Which obviously is not the case, right? But it made it hard. It made it hard with just to convince myself that it's fine if it takes some of my time, because when we sold the business, and I'm going to talk to you about potentially acquisitions and stuff, this is an interesting topic, but when we sold ours, I had to hire my own replacement. And the person that we found, that we hired to take over all my jobs, not only were they amazing, because they're really, really good at what they were doing, but they didn't need any hand-holding other than a couple days of me telling them, this is where it is, this is where, like what that module does, what that configuration, where you find that kind of stuff. After a couple days, silence. They understood it, they went through it, they dealt with it, and I didn't have to do anything with them. It was the best transition of our business I could ever have done, right? We gave them the keys to the city, essentially handed over the whole business, and then a couple days of additional work, and we were done. It was awesome. So talking
you
about
should have done this way before.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I thought, if I had done this maybe half a year ago, hired somebody to share the work with, then maybe we could have grown the business even more. So now that we were selling it, we could have sold it for twice the amount of money. I mean, we still sold it for a life-changing amount of money. That's not the problem. But, you wonder, if I had help, where could we have gone? Having said this, do you build your business to be sold at one day? Like, do you want it to be an acquisition target for somebody, or how is this coming along? Because $400,000 a year, that's a lot of money, and that is just looking at even a mild and a low valuation. That's $1 million deal at least. So how are you thinking about that?
So for now, I have no exit plan, and I just want to reach $1 million ARR. And that seems like a magic number that most of our bootstrappers want to reach out to.
Oh, yeah.
And because for now, I'm kind of at a weird stage that, for 400K ARR, and I think that John Yongfu used to tweet when he reached 400K, and he said that probably he could sell his banner bear at a 5x multiples on top of the ARR. That means that he can sell 2 million for someone to take care of banner bear, but he won't do that. And it's a good money, but it's not really life changing. Not to mention that if you have a team, and you also want your team benefits from an exit. So yeah, so I think I will still try to continue to grow my business. And because another reason is that I live in a very expensive area in the United States. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the software engineers here are getting paid like two 200K, 300K per year, and the housing here is at least millions levels. And so I think the life-changing money for me is probably, several millions, 10 millions level. So I treat the life-changing number to be, let's say if I work at any fan company, let's say I got paid 300K, and life-changing means that if I don't work in the next 20 years, and 300K times 20, and that means probably a life-changing sum is 6 million to me.
It's funny, right? Because $2 million obviously is life-changing almost everywhere else but in the Silicon Valley community, right?
Yes.
Like if you move over a couple 100 kilometers to the south, or even to the east from there, maybe even to the north, you will find that this kind of money, like $2 million, will buy you a house and probably a couple decades of not having to do anything at all. So it makes a lot of sense that in your situation where you're at, this is not the ultimate choice, but it's nice to know that you are already at that stage. That's the thing that I think is mind-blowing in that situation that you're in. I hope you understand this, because when I was in that situation, when we were reaching those kind of numbers, it didn't occur to me. It only occurred to me when somebody reached out to me and us at the business and told us, hey, we were interested in buying your company. And then we asked, okay, for this much? And they said, sure. And we looked, what? Like that was the kind of the situation that we were in at that point. I had never thought about it. Funny enough, I built the company to be sellable, right? Because I had read all these books about built to sell, John Warlow, and entrepreneurial, or just the E-Myth by Gerber. Like that kind of stuff was already on my mind, but I had never thought like, oh yeah, my company is actually worth something at this point. And then you start treating it like you have to protect it as well, right? You have to make sure that the company sticks around and that the value, the wealth that you've built already needs to continue to grow. So interesting to hear your potential exit number, because everybody's dream exit, everybody's dream could also be like to keep the company running forever, right? So it's doesn't have to be an exit at all. Are you building the company in a sellable way? Like is that even though you don't have to sell it obviously, but are you building it with that potentially in mind?
After I hit a million ARR, that will for now it's a no, and it doesn't make sense to me to sell, and the business is still growing 10%, over 10% month over month, and we could hit a million ARR sometime next year, and I think an exit is a big thing to any founder or co-founder, and don't think that building a product is the most important. And if you don't have a good exit strategy, if you don't have a good exit negotiation, and you could potentially lose several $1 million just in an exit deal. And I think that's the thing that should be in our mind, especially even if we never thought about an exit at this moment. And I used to talk to a founder, I couldn't disclose his name, and he also exit his business at a life-changing sum. And it's really a life-changing sum. And he told me that he suggests me to think about an exit at this moment. And the way that he had a perfect exit is because he just shop around, and he could potentially raise some VC fund, and also he can just had an exit to sell 100% of his business. And the way that he negotiated a perfect offer is that he just used the VC valuation and presented to the private equity, and if they want to buy it, he just said that if can offer this amount of money, I will sell it right away. And that's the way that
it's genius.
Yeah.
I like that. I think generally that is a great example of like building a business with the exit in mind without like forcing the exit itself. And it's just like knowing what you're worth and also understanding the dynamics of the private equity. Like that, knowing that they want to buy a business because it generates money, because it has value to them. And if they keep growing it, if they keep running it, then it will over time generate more than they pay for it, right? So that's kind of understanding what that value is and then using that in a negotiation. Generally a good idea to do this at a point where you don't need to sell, where you're just able to sell, which is also an important thing, right?
If at least you can do some brain training and just get yourself prepared when the final day comes.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm honestly, I think you could sell right now and it would be great. But looking at what you're doing and how the trajectory of it is going, I hope that you can keep running this for a long, long time, provide a lot of people with great testimonials, and at the same time build an amazing business for yourself and your family. I think that is wonderful. I'm extremely glad to see this working out so well. And I know that you took some funding with this, just a tiny little bit in the beginning, right? I myself am invested in the Calm Company Fund, which back then was called Earnest Capital, which yeah, I am. I think I am actually invested in your business. But it's just don't even need to talk about that really. But yes, I'm in there too. I'm in the mentor network as well, and how has that been for you? Like the experience of taking like Bootstrap or compatible funding and not VC funding. Can you? Because I'm excited to hear about this from the actual people who get the money, not just the person who's an investor in that fund. Talk to me about that.
I think when Earnest Capital, now the Calm Fund, invest in Testimonial, and Testimonial almost hit 2,000 MRR, and that is still early, and I think having Earnest on my cap table is my how to say it's kind of like the thing that I really want to have. I'm not really concerned about the equity, and equity is just a single digit. And the more important thing to me is having a community where I can surround myself with, and the portfolio companies in the Earnest Capital is they're probably doing several $million annual recurring revenue, and those founders tend to give me more approachable and practical advices instead of I randomly watched some YouTube video and got advice from
Peter Thiel or Elon Musk,
Fortune 500 company CEO or executive, this kind of thing. So I can even interact with them like you, right? So and it's always be good to follow the fellow founders step. I really want to do that because it's like I pay them my equity to be able to get myself a ticket into the community. So that's what I think of why I want to bring Compound to my capital.
That's cool. That is nice to hear, and it makes a lot of sense. I think like that's why I build in public, and that's why I follow so many people who build in public, is because you learn most from the people who are just a little bit ahead of you, or who've done the thing you want to do before, and they can tell you exactly what they did, so you can be inspired, right? You can't repeat it. Every business is its own little thing, but you can definitely find inspiration in it. And I think that's a big part of our community that makes it even possible for us to have these little businesses. And I mean little, not in a diminutive way, right? I mean it in really just in terms of the amount of money that they initially, at least, that they make. The fact that somebody would invest in your business with $2,000 in recurring revenue.
They take big risk.
And whatever other industry would do this, right? What VC would invest in a business like this? But now you see where it led, and all it's very obvious that it was a good choice. And I feel you need people who understand bootstrapping to give advice to bootstrappers and to give money to bootstrappers as well. And this is obviously not a sponsored Calm Fund conversation, but I find it that it's one of the ways that bootstrappers support each other, right? There's building in public, there's teaching, there's podcasts like this, conversations where people share what they know, and there are ways to use institutional money or just investor money to further the means of other bootstrappers without having them all of a sudden following different directions. Right? That's the one gripe that I have with VC money is often that, okay, now you're trying to have hyper growth because otherwise the investment doesn't make sense. And there are options beyond Comfund, obviously, as well. But there are many Bootstrapper compatible indie funding options out there, and I really appreciate that. Would you say that you will ever go for more funding, or is it bootstrapping all the way from here on?
I would say at this moment, just bootstrap all the way. In terms of funding, so for now there are other kind of options. You don't have to sacrifice any equity, like Pipe or the founder path. Those two are not sponsors as well, but I'd like to share, say their name. You can. There's a magical way that you can just leverage to get some capital instead of sacrifice any of your equity. So the way that they do is that, if you earn some monthly recurring revenue, they can turn the monthly recurring revenue with a little bit of discount, so that they gave you something like the annual recurring revenue. So that means that they become your annual subscriber, but you have to give them a little bit of discount. So that way you can get the capital right away. And if you want to invest the money in your team, and you can that's another way you can go after.
What is cool about these approaches is that they're data driven. Right? They look at the actual numbers. They look at your retention, your churn, your customer acquisition cost. They look at the lifetime value. They don't just hope that you win the whole market. Like, it's not that they're going to throw millions of dollars because you're going to disrupt, I don't know, the social proof. Like, you're not going to disrupt social proof. You're just going to enable people to integrate social proof into their businesses, right? Almost in a traditional, almost boring way, are you building a business that just gives people the tool that they need to do one more thing for their business, right? You're not changing the world. You kind of are. You're making things better, but you're not doing it as this great disruptive move, and you don't need billions of dollars for that. So I think, yeah, the Founder Path and Pipe alternatives are obviously also great options to front load revenue, because that's what it is, right? It's not hopeful money. It's your revenue as it would come anyway earlier. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, I think we're hitting time here, so this has been such an interesting conversation about a business that, to me, is doing so much good, and for you obviously, but also for the people who use it. Thank you so much for talking to me about Testimonial and all the other little things today. I know your journey has been a long one with a lot of projects that were left on the side or that things grew out of, and it's always exciting to hear the story, the history, and the things that impacted your decision making and the process. If people want to follow you on your existing journey right now and your building and public journey of Testimonial and whatever may come next, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter. I pretty much share a lot of stuff for my building public, this kind of movement with other fellow makers, like you are like a legend to me. So my Twitter handle is DAMENGCHEN, and yeah, they can check out Testimonial.to if you want to have this kind of social proof, collect testimonials, and also import reviews from third-party sites, and have Testimonial to be a one-stop shop to manage all your social proof across the internet.
Wow, you know how to sell your product. I love that. And honestly, I've been using it. Like, I've been doing exactly what you've just been saying, like importing stuff from other sites, like both from Twitter and I think even Amazon and stuff. Like, just pulling in this information about my work in other places into one cohesive wall of love, which is amazing. Thank you so much for being here today and for building such awesome products. That was really sweet of you.
My pleasure.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening to the Bootstrap Founder podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Arvidkahl, Arvidkahl, and you'll find my books Zero to Sold and The Embedded Entrepreneur, and my Twitter course find you following there as well. If you want to support me and the Bootstrap Founder podcast, please follow the YouTube channel, follow the podcast, and leave a rating and a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/founder. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.